Her porch light had always seemed harmless, until a shocking discovery changed everything. One woman's quiet life was about to explode into a high-stakes battle with a vindictive neighbor, a fight for justice that would flip her world upside down. Karen stared at the small black device hidden inside the porch light, her mind racing. How long had it been there? What had it seen? Fury surged through her as she realized her neighbor, Sarah, must have installed a hidden camera to spy on her family. Sarah had always been the neighborhood busybody, always nosing into other people's business. But this was a violation of their privacy, an unforgivable breach of trust. Karen's hands trembled as she carefully removed the camera, her heart pounding. She needed to confront Sarah, to demand answers. But first, she had to make sure the authorities knew what was going on. Rushing inside, Karen dialed the FBI hotline, her voice shaking as she explained the situation. "I found a hidden camera in my porch light," she said, trying to keep her composure. "My neighbor, Sarah, must have put it there to spy on my family." The agent on the other end listened intently, then promised to dispatch a team to investigate immediately. Karen's stomach twisted with a mix of dread and determination. This was not going to be easy, but she was prepared to fight for her family's safety and privacy. As the FBI agents arrived, Karen ushered them inside, handing over the incriminating camera. The agents examined it carefully, noting the sophisticated technology and the evidence of long-term use. They'd assured Karen that they would conduct a thorough investigation, and that Sarah would be held accountable for her actions. Karen's mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? What had Sarah been watching? Had she shared the footage with anyone else? The thought of her family's intimate moments being violated made her feel sick to her stomach. The agents informed her that they would need to search her home thoroughly to ensure there were no other hidden cameras or recording devices. Karen reluctantly agreed, her heart pounding as the team methodically scanned every room, every corner, every hiding place. Finally, the agents emerged, their faces grave. "Mrs. Jones, we found evidence of multiple hidden cameras throughout your home," one of them announced. "It's clear that your neighbor has been systematically spying on you and your family for some time." Karen's knees buckled, and she had to grip the kitchen counter to keep from collapsing. Her quiet, peaceful life had been shattered, and the consequences of Sarah's actions were only just beginning to unfold. The news of the hidden cameras sent shockwaves through the quiet suburban neighborhood. As the FBI agents continued their investigation, word quickly spread among the residents, fueling a growing sense of outrage and disbelief. Sarah, the once respected pillar of the community, found herself the target of intense scrutiny and suspicion. Neighbors who had previously welcomed her into their homes now regarded her with a mix of disgust and wariness, unwilling to trust her or even make eye contact. Karen, feeling both violated and vindicated, wasted no time in confronting her neighbor. She stormed over to Sarah's immaculately manicured lawn, her face flushed with anger. "How could you do this to us?" she demanded, her voice trembling with emotion. "We trusted you, and you betrayed that trust in the worst possible way." Sarah, caught off guard by the accusation, stammered a weak denial. "I don't know what you're talking about," she insisted, her eyes darting nervously. "I would never do something like that." But Karen was having none of it. "Don't even try to deny it, Sarah," she spat. "The FBI found the cameras. They know what you've been doing, and they're going to make sure you pay for it." The confrontation quickly drew the attention of other neighbors, who gathered around the two women, their faces etched with a mix of shock and outrage. Some began to shout accusations at Sarah, demanding to know how long she had been spying on them. Sarah, her facade of respectability crumbling, tried to defend herself, but her words were drowned out by the growing chorus of angry voices. Realizing that she was facing a losing battle, she retreated back into her home, slamming the door behind her. Karen stood there, her chest heaving, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over her. She had finally confronted the woman who had violated her family's privacy, and she knew that the consequences were only just beginning. As the FBI continued their investigation, the neighborhood erupted into a frenzy of rumors and speculation. Neighbors who had once been friendly now eyed each other with suspicion, wondering who else might have been involved in Sarah's elaborate spy network. For Karen, the ordeal was far from over. She knew that she would have to navigate a complex legal battle, one that would test her resolve and her family's resilience. But she was determined to see it through, to ensure that justice was served and that her family's privacy was protected. The news of the hidden cameras sent shockwaves through the quiet suburban neighborhood. As the FBI investigation intensified, the residents of the community found themselves caught in a web of suspicion and distrust. Karen, still reeling from the violation of her family's privacy, knew that she had to take decisive action. She reached out to a local attorney, determined to ensure that Sarah was held accountable for her actions. The lawyer, a seasoned expert in privacy and security law, listened intently as Karen recounted the details of the case. He assured her that they had a strong legal foundation and that he would do everything in his power to ensure that justice was served. With the attorney's guidance, Karen began to gather evidence and documentation to build her case. She combed through her family's activities, trying to pinpoint any potential patterns or irregularities that could be linked to Sarah's spying. The task was daunting, but Karen was driven by a fierce determination to protect her loved ones. As the investigation progressed, the FBI uncovered more damning evidence against Sarah. It became clear that the hidden cameras had been in place for years, and that she had meticulously recorded the daily lives of her neighbors, including intimate moments and private conversations. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community, with many residents questioning their own privacy and security. Some even began to suspect that Sarah had not acted alone, leading to a growing sense of unease and mistrust among the neighbors. Karen, determined to confront Sarah and demand answers, arranged a tense meeting between the two women, accompanied by her lawyer. The encounter was heated, with Sarah initially denying any wrongdoing, but as the evidence mounted, she eventually broke down and confessed. "I was just curious," she stammered, her eyes filled with a mixture of shame and defiance. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted to know what was going on in my own neighborhood." Karen's face twisted with disgust, and she struggled to contain her anger. "You violated our privacy, Sarah," she spat. "You've destroyed the trust of this entire community, and you're going to pay for it." The lawyer stepped in, outlining the legal ramifications of Sarah's actions and the potential consequences she would face. Sarah's face paled as she realized the gravity of her situation, and she knew that her life as she knew it was about to unravel. As the meeting drew to a close, Karen felt a sense of grim satisfaction. The battle was far from over, but she was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. The fallout from the hidden camera scandal continued to reverberate through the tight-knit suburban community. As the FBI investigation deepened, the residents found themselves divided, with some rallying behind Karen and others reluctantly defending Sarah. Karen, bolstered by the unwavering support of her lawyer, pressed forward with her case, determined to ensure that Sarah faced the full brunt of the law. She pored over the mounting evidence, which painted a disturbing picture of Sarah's methodical and sustained violation of her neighbor's privacy. The revelations were nothing short of shocking, with the FBI uncovering a vast network of hidden cameras and recording devices that Sarah had installed throughout the neighborhood. The scope of her actions was staggering, and it became clear that she had been systematically spying on her neighbors for years, capturing everything from mundane daily activities to deeply personal moments. As the news spread, the community erupted in outrage. Neighbors who had once considered Sarah a trusted friend now viewed her with a mixture of disgust and betrayal. Heated arguments broke out on front lawns and in local hangouts, as residents debated the merits of the case and the appropriate course of action. Some, swayed by Sarah's pleas for forgiveness and claims of innocence, argued that the whole ordeal had been blown out of proportion. They insisted that Sarah had merely been curious, that her actions had been misunderstood, and that the punishment she faced was too severe. Karen, however, remained steadfast in her pursuit of justice. She knew that Sarah's actions had violated not just her family's privacy, but the trust and security of the entire community. She was determined to ensure that Sarah faced the full legal consequences of her crimes, no matter the cost. As the court date approached, tensions in the neighborhood reached a fever pitch. Neighbors who had once been friendly now eyed each other with suspicion, wondering if they too had been the targets of Sarah's elaborate spy network. The trial itself was a media frenzy, with news crews and curious onlookers packing the courtroom to witness the spectacle. Sarah, her once pristine reputation in tatters, took the stand and attempted to defend her actions, but the overwhelming evidence against her quickly shattered any semblance of credibility. Karen, her heart racing, watched as the judge delivered the verdict, a resounding guilty verdict, with Sarah facing a lengthy prison sentence and a hefty fine. As the gavel came down, a wave of relief and vindication washed over her, but she knew that the scars left by this ordeal would take time to heal. The sentencing of Sarah for her elaborate network of hidden cameras in the neighborhood sent shockwaves through the community. While some residents expressed satisfaction that justice had been served, the fallout from the scandal continued to reverberate, leaving deep divisions and lasting mistrust. Karen, her family's privacy finally secured, found herself grappling with a mix of emotions. Relief, yes, but also a lingering sense of unease and vulnerability. She knew that the damage done to the neighborhood's social fabric would not be easily repaired, and she wondered how her family would navigate the aftermath. As Sarah was led away to begin her prison sentence, Karen caught a glimpse of the once respected neighbor, her eyes downcast and her shoulders slumped. A part of her felt a twinge of sympathy, but she quickly pushed it aside, reminding herself of the profound breach of trust that had occurred. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood began to slowly heal, but the scars were deep. Neighbors who had once been close now eyed each other with suspicion, unsure of who else might have been involved in Sarah's spying network. Casual conversations and backyard barbecues gave way to a palpable tension, as everyone grappled with the realization that the very foundations of their community had been shaken. Karen, determined to reclaim a sense of normalcy, organized a series of community gatherings, hoping to bring her neighbors back together. But the efforts were met with a mix of reluctance and resentment, as some residents remained unwilling to let go of the trauma they had experienced. The situation grew increasingly complicated when it was revealed that Sarah had not acted alone. The FBI investigation uncovered a web of accomplices, including several neighbors who had aided in the installation and maintenance of the hidden cameras. This discovery only served to deepen the division and distrust within the community, as residents struggled to come to terms with the betrayal. Karen, her resolve tested, refused to back down. She worked tirelessly with her lawyer to ensure that all of Sarah's accomplices were brought to justice, determined to send a clear message that such egregious violations of privacy would not be tolerated. As the legal proceedings dragged on, the neighborhood found itself in a state of flux, with some residents clinging to the hope of reconciliation, while others remained steadfast in their determination to protect their own privacy and security. For Karen, the battle had only just begun. She knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but she was more resolute than ever to see it through, no matter the cost. The legal battle that followed the hidden camera scandal sent shockwaves through the once peaceful suburban community. As Sarah's accomplices were brought to justice, the residents found themselves grappling with a range of emotions, from relief and vindication to a deep sense of betrayal and mistrust. Karen, though exhausted from the relentless legal proceedings, refused to back down. She worked closely with her lawyer, meticulously building cases against each of the individuals involved in the elaborate spying network. The revelations that emerged during the trials were nothing short of damning, exposing a web of deceit and manipulation that had been woven throughout the neighborhood. As the details of the scandal became public, the community found itself torn apart. Some residents rallied behind Karen, praising her tenacity and determination to seek justice. Others, however, remained sympathetic to Sarah and her accomplices, arguing that the punishments were too severe and that the whole affair had been blown out of proportion. The divisions within the neighborhood only deepened as the trials wore on, with neighbors who had once been friendly now avoiding each other altogether. Heated arguments erupted on front lawns and in local hangouts as the debate over privacy, security, and the boundaries of community trust raged on. Karen, her family's privacy finally secured, found herself grappling with a mix of emotions. While she took some solace in the fact that the perpetrators were being held accountable, the damage done to the community's social fabric was profound. She worried about the long-term consequences, both for her family and for the neighborhood as a whole. As the final verdicts were handed down, the community was left to pick up the pieces. Sarah and her accomplices faced lengthy prison sentences, hefty fines, and permanent criminal records. A clear message that such egregious violations of privacy would not be tolerated. But for many residents, the scars ran deeper than any legal punishment could ever heal. The trust that had once bound the neighborhood together had been irrevocably shattered, and the path forward was uncertain. Karen, determined to reclaim a sense of normalcy, organized a series of community gatherings, hoping to bridge the divide and bring her neighbors back together. But the efforts were met with a mix of reluctance and resentment, as some residents remained unwilling to let go of the trauma they had experienced. The road to recovery would be long and arduous, but Karen knew that she had to keep fighting. The stakes were too high, not just for her family, but for the entire community that she had once called home. As the dust settled on the hidden camera scandal, the residents of the once close-knit suburban community found themselves at a crossroads. The legal battles had ended, with Sarah and her accomplices facing harsh punishments, but the scars left on the neighborhood were deep and lasting. Karen, her family's privacy finally secured, found herself grappling with a range of emotions. Relief, yes, but also a deep sense of unease and uncertainty about the future of the community she had once loved. The divisions within the neighborhood had only grown more pronounced in the wake of the trials. Some residents remained steadfast in their support of Karen, praising her tenacity and determination to seek justice. Others, however, continued to defend Sarah and her accomplices, arguing that the punishments were too severe and that the whole affair had been blown out of proportion. The tension was palpable, with neighbors who had once been friendly now actively avoiding one another. Casual conversations and community events gave way to a frosty silence, as the residents struggled to come to terms with the betrayal they had experienced. Karen, determined to heal the wounds and restore a sense of unity, organized a series of community gatherings, hoping to bring her neighbors back together. But the efforts were met with a mix of reluctance and resentment, as some residents remained unwilling to let go of the trauma they had endured. As the months passed, the neighborhood found itself in a state of limbo, with residents unsure of how to move forward. Some began to withdraw from community life altogether, preferring the safety and isolation of their own homes over the uncertainty of their once thriving neighborhood. Karen, her heart heavy, watched as the fabric of the community she had once known unraveled before her eyes. She knew that the road to recovery would be long and arduous, but she refused to give up. She continued to reach out to her neighbors, to organize events and initiatives aimed at rebuilding trust and fostering a sense of unity. But the task was daunting, and Karen often found herself overwhelmed by the sheer weight of the challenge. The wounds were too deep, the scars too raw, and the mistrust too entrenched to be easily healed. Still, Karen pressed on, determined to reclaim the sense of community and belonging that had once been the cornerstone of her life. She knew that the path forward would be difficult, but she was more resolute than ever to see it through, no matter the cost. As the months turned into years, the once thriving suburban community found itself in a state of uneasy stasis. The fallout from the hidden camera scandal had left deep scars, and the residents struggled to find a way forward, their trust in one another shaken to the core. Karen, her tireless efforts to heal the neighborhood's wounds met with only limited success. found herself facing a sobering reality. The damage done was far more extensive than she had ever imagined, and the path to true reconciliation seemed elusive. Still, she refused to give up, her determination fueled by a deep-seated belief that the community she loved could be restored. She organized neighborhood watch programs, facilitated mediation sessions, and even worked to establish a community trust fund to help rebuild the shared spaces that had once been the heart of the neighborhood. But the progress was slow, and the resistance from some residents remained steadfast. Some refused to forgive, their anger and resentment simmering just beneath the surface. Others, scarred by the betrayal, had simply withdrawn from community life altogether, content to live in their own private enclaves, their once friendly neighbors now little more than strangers. Karen, her own family still grappling with the aftermath of the scandal, found solace in the small victories. A tentative smile exchanged on the street, a cautious handshake at a block party, a shared moment of laughter that briefly dispelled the heavy cloud of mistrust. Yet, she knew that the true healing would require time, patience, and a willingness to confront the painful truths that had been laid bare. The community she had once known might never fully recover, but she was determined to do everything in her power to rebuild what had been lost. As the years passed, Karen watched as the neighborhood evolved, slowly but surely. New families moved in, bringing with them a fresh perspective and a willingness to engage with their neighbors. The old wounds began to mend, the scars fading into the background as a new generation of residents breathed life into the community. And though the echoes of the hidden camera scandal would never truly fade, Karen found solace in the knowledge that the community she had fought so hard to preserve was slowly but surely finding its way back to a semblance of normalcy. It was a hard-won victory, to be sure, but one that filled her heart with a deep sense of pride and resilience. In the end, the battle had been long and arduous, but Karen knew that she had done everything in her power to protect her family and her community. The road ahead might be uncertain, but she was more determined than ever to forge a path towards a brighter, more secure future for all.